Good morning.
Did you? Hey, buddy. Good morning.
Outstanding.
How are you doing?
Outstanding. There's my classmate, Kennedy, Germain, handsome as ever. How are you, brother Kennedy?
I am doing fantastic. Sentiments right back at you, brother.
Yes, indeed. Well, listen, I just want to compliment you on your book. I got a copy, and what I find very inspirational about the book is its sort of resonant spirituality. That obviously you're a man of faith, and that comes through in your work. And I just want to compliment you on that, because I think as we go on in age, we realize that we are spiritual beings on a material walk. We're not material beings on a spiritual walk. And
that is so true. That is so true. Thanks for those kind words. It's been a journey, and I really don't have a choice, because when I look back at my career and how God put things in together, yes. Had to be miracles.
Indeed. Oh, without a doubt, we're both the products of miracles. I was reflecting, time is short, we only here for a blip of time. And, we go back to elementary school days at the Goodwill Junior High School in Lower Goodwill, looking at the Caribbean Sea on sunny school day afternoons. And your brother, Lincoln, who is also outstanding engineer and corporate executive, and yourself, we enjoyed those school days. And one of the remarkable things was that you went to Tuskegee. Yep. And you flew with the famous African-American aviator, pioneer in American aviation, Chief Anderson, who trained at the Tuskegee Airmen. And that was so spectacular a thing. Because as I said to you, I joined the Tuskegee Airmen 15 years ago as an association member. So we will talk about that, but what we will do is, first of all, of course, welcome Kennedy. It's good to see you after so many years. And what we will do is start with your early years, your parents, siblings, coming through elementary school education, your education at the St. Mary's Academy, post-secondary education, coming to the United States, your work in corporate America, and your service to humanity. So that's the sort of general outline. It's an open set of dialogue. It's more conversation. But by that virtue, I hope that those who will be coming up long after we are gone will find a bit of inspiration from our lives and be able to take some guidance from the exemplary things we did. Obviously, we aren't perfect vessels. We are, as human beings, all imperfect, but that which we have done that resonates for good. Hopefully, we'll be able to be exemplary to others who will see this interview. So with that, Brother Kennedy, when were you born and where were you born?
So I was actually born in Dominica, in Maho. And a lot of my friends might remember me on a different name, actually, Kennedy Julian. Okay. I used to be Julian through SMA, and through different circumstances, my last name was changed. Yes. My stepdad adopted me and became my dad, and I took on the last name of Germain. So yes. Several of my friends remember me from Goodwill or from SMA, from Canefield, will remember Kennedy Julian. Yes. But I was born in Maho. I not long after.
What date was that, Kennedy?
June 21st, the summer solstice, longest day of the year, 1960, a long time ago.
Yes, indeed.
And from Maho,
were you born at the Princess Margaret Hospital? Because it was open by then.
No, I was born at home. Okay. I was a home birth. Yes. Back then, that was common, right?
Yes. Midwives.
But not long after, I moved to St. Joseph, where I spent the first part of my early years with my grandmother. My grandparents actually brought me up until my first communion age, and I left St. Joseph this Saturday. I was before my first communion Sunday, and I was very mad about it.
Yes.
But moved to town, to Goodwill, with my mom and my parents, and that's where I spent, between moving around Roswell a little bit. But somehow I was always drawn to aviation.
Yeah, but
Um,
before you get to aviation, so when you start, so my mom was from St. Joseph. So did you go to the St. Joseph Government School for a while?
I did, yes. I was in the lower school, and for all my early years was in
Yeah.
elementary school in St.
Did
Joseph.
you go to school with people like Lyndon Scotland?
I did, yes,
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 yes. Lyndon
yes.
Scotland, of course, another engineer, chemical engineer,
Hmm.
who has done great things, great humanitarian. Any other names you remember from the St. Joseph Elementary School?
Well, so I don't. I remember Lyndon because we had a conversation on Facebook about that.
Yes.
He's like, "Hey, I didn't know you were in St. Joseph. You grew up in St. Joseph." Like, yeah, I had. My cousin, Giftus John, posted something,
Yes.
some one of his pictures, and it just brought me back to St. Joseph. And I remember the days, the Catholic Church and the river that flowed through St. Joseph. Right, spent a lot of time
Yes.
catching fish in the very dirty water back then. We didn't think of it as dirty water.
Right. Right.
um, but those were, fun memories from St. Joseph, and I remember very well.
And
Yeah,
you go to the Layu River and go up the river and all that.
absolutely. My uncle, we call him Uncle Wowan, Ronald Julian Wood. I remember he had a Volkswagen Beetle, and I don't know how many of us he would fit into that little bug, but I swear there were 15 kids, myself and Mackie Fagan and Giftus John and Reggie and so on, and we'd just pile into that car, and he would take us to Mero or Layu or wherever to the beach on Sunday afternoons, and
That's amazing.
we would enjoy that time, you know.
Yeah.
So my time in St. Joseph was
Give a little
fantastic.
sense of what St. Joseph Village was like. It's the pace of life, the buildings, the sports that were played, the food that you had.
So very laid back. Um, I just remember it was very laid back, as back in those days. Fun things for us was rolling a tire down the road, right? As kids, no video games and TVs and all of that. And at night, it was our parents or grandparents telling us jokes on the back steps of the house.
Under the
The
moonlight.
kids under the moonlight and all the kids around there, waking up early to the smell of bread from the bakery next door, was something I totally remember. In the summers, we
Stick a
would
pin
go.
in that, Kennedy. That's a very important point you made. Most of the villages had several bakeries, and they would bake bread early in the morning. Is that right?
Yep, yep, yep. We would wake up, the scent of the bread would be right there, and would go queue up to get our 2 pence bread.
Yes, yes.
um,
Explain the difference between a 2 pence bread and a mastic, for instance.
Well, the 2 pence bread was this, I don't know, two little pieces stuck together. Exactly, look like this. We
Yeah.
call it the 2 pence bread versus the massive, which was one much longer loaf. But the 2 pence bread was nice and soft, hot. You put butter in that thing, and you're good to go.
Yes,
Some cocoa tea, and you're fine.
yes, yes. And the mastiff was, of course, only for special occasions.
Special occasions, Sundays,
Sunday.
special days, birthdays, and so on. It was just delicious.
Yes, it was a
Today
more
we hunt.
luxurious loaf.
It was a luxurious, very expensive, but it was luxurious. It was good.
Yes,
It was
yes.
good.
What about fishing?
So
Did you go to the sea fishing or playing in the sea?
no, I didn't. I played in the sea a lot. The fishing I did wasn't fishing, but I remember very well. There was a coconut tree that fell in the ocean, and imagine the leaves of the tree was actually in the ocean with the trunk, strewn across the beach to the roots, right? But where the head of the tree was, the leaves broke off, but that became almost like a breeding ground for fish. So as kids, we would take a pot I remember taking a pot from my grandmother's house, going down the beach, and we would literally put the pot under the water, and where the fish would be swimming, all different colored fishes, and we just lift it up, and up comes a pot full of little fish. So
Amazing.
it's not fish to eat, but we did some fishing in those. The fishing I did in the river was for crayfish and this fish we call dorme. I'm not even sure what the English word is for it, but it was, it would hide under the dirt or on the rocks, and we would stick our hands under there and try to catch it and grab him. And yeah, that's the extent of my fishing.
Amazing. Let's talk about school at St. Joseph. Any teachers you remember?
No. St. Joseph was such a long time. I don't remember my time there. I remember having fun in St. Joseph,
Yes.
and great
Yes.
memories from there, but not specifically from school. The memory I have of the school was how they would convert it to a cinema on Sunday afternoons, and would go to matinee, because the school, they would put get the desks out and just have chairs, and have a big screen, and that would be converted into a cinema. So Sunday afternoons, I always look forward whenever my uncle would take me to go to the cinema, in our school.
Interesting. And just so folks remember, for those who would not know, when Kennedy and I grew up in Dominica, in Roseau, early days, there was just one cinema, the Carib Cinema. But in villages, the Government Information Service, GIS, would go out and have its own Mr. Gregoire show movies at the back of a Land Rover Jeep. And also at the school, the St. Joseph School, the entrepreneurs would come and show, they'd have what is called in those days a projector. And they would project onto a sheet, at the back of the classroom, particular movie. Any movies you remember? I mean, my mother talked about Tarzan.
Lots of cowboy. John Wayne was my favorite, obviously, but lots of cowboy movies. And I remember getting our little, I don't know if you remember the peanuts they would sell in newspaper. They wrap the newspaper almost like a cone, fill it up with peanuts.
Yes.
Would buy that and go in and have our peanuts, Afterwards, when the floor of the school would be just littered with peanut shells.
That's right.
For Monday morning,
they call it pistache.
Pistache. There you go.
Yes, indeed. When you were at school in St. Joseph, we'll get to good old school in a little bit, because that's where we met back in the early 70s. Would you have vendors come to the school and sell things like coconut tarts and so on?
They did, yes. So having, a penny or 5 cents, a nickel, something, to buy, recess at recess was always a key thing, right? My grandparents were not rich, give me a lot of money to go to school, or whatever I could get. Then, I would really enjoy the tart. It was tarts, turnovers, tablet, loga,
And all of those things were made
sweets
by local women in the kitchens.
Local in the kitchens, and little plastics, a little whatever, selling on a little tray next to the schoolyard.
Nothing like Doritos and Tostitos chips, right?
No. No, none of those.
So you come you come and of course Lincoln is younger than you?
Yes, Lincoln is my younger brother.
Yes, indeed. And you both have names of US presidents. Of course, on my wall here is a picture of Kennedy, and over here is a picture of Lincoln, because I'm a big, I channel Lincoln. Lincoln was a great believer in science, and of course a great humanitarian who fought that war to abolish slavery in the United States. So he means a lot to me, and Kennedy was in his tradition. Why did you tell me why your father named you Kennedy? Oh, your mother.
Because no, it's simple, because of the presidents. We did ask. I remember asking, and my mom said yes, because in my case, I was born in 1960, right? And Kennedy was the idol of the Caribbean folks, the American president, because of what he stood for.
Yes.
And so my dad named me after President Kennedy.
And you're not the only one. We at Goodwill School, there are 2 other Kennedys. One was Kennedy Richards, and the other one was Kennedy Garraway. In fact, he's John Fitzgerald Kennedy Garraway. His sister, his older sister, good friends of ours. She said he was born on the night that Kennedy was assassinated, or the night he died. And they gave him the full name, and we called him Johnny. So for those who may not know, in that period, and Kennedy you may bear this out. In many homes, there were portraits of Kennedy, after his assassination. In fact, when I left for the States on our war was a tapestry of the American flag. In the middle was Martin Luther King. To his right was John F. Kennedy, and to his left was Robert F. Kennedy. So the two Kennedy brothers and King, all of them assassinated. So that really shaped our lives, wouldn't you say?
I definitely, yeah, I do remember that, and my name was always a heavy name to carry just because of what it represented. I never, growing up as a kid, that wasn't something that was important to me, right? But as I got older, I did one day ask my mom, did you all name me after President Kennedy? And she laughed and gave us the stories, like, yes, and Lincoln as well, named Lincoln after President Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Definitely.
So Kennedy, we're coming to the Goodwill Junior High School. So you lived in Goodwill, what lane?
We live on Jolly Lane in Goodwill, but then from Jolly Lane, we went to Shillingford Crescent, which is next to where the government had all the caterpillars and
the Public Works
Ministry, right? And
in fact, that's very close to where I lived. I lived on Didier Lane, so I didn't even remember that so much. And Francis Richards, who married Johnny Fitzgerald Kennedy of Garraway. Is it Garraway or Greenaway? Garraway. They live down there too, by the Public Works.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Not far from the sea.
That's right. Yeah, I remember Francis. But yes, same, yeah, we were right across the beach. So go run into the sea, and there was the Public Works had a field right in front of Shillingford Crescent that they had all these parts and old caterpillars and everything. And I remember we would, as kids, we would go in there and get parts and bearings and so on to build little trucks and things.
That's right. So you remember the Vepcarts, and you go up the hill and come down with the Vepcarts.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So let me ask you that: do you think Francis is also very much into mechanical engineering? He never became a mechanical engineer. He did a master's in agriculture. But do you think that interaction with engineering parts and making these things helped your creativity and maybe drove you in the direction of engineering?
I think so. My mom was telling me a story. She said, from the time I was a kid, I used to always be doing these things because that's where I would find fun. They were available. You'd go, you'd get creative. I mean, we got creative on how we had fun, right? But what she said, the interesting thing is that translated into what I did in the house. And she remember I would take cardboard boxes, paint them. Well, I would put shelves in the dividers in the boxes, paint, the ones with two flaps, paint them, put a little knob on the doors, put it right side up, and that would become like a nightstand.
Amazing.
And she said, so they would get jealous. I have a little nightstand next to my bed. It's a cardboard box that's been painted, and I put a little door and a piece of wood on top of it, so it is a little more sturdy. But she thought it was just interesting that I was able to come up with that kind of an idea. So she was not surprised when I went into mechanical engineering, because from my early days as a child, finding things to play and enjoy, it was always these kind of things that attracted me that I end up doing.
So as a parent yourself, I'm going to ask you a little bit about your wife and your children in a moment, and we'll come back to the elementary school. How important is it to put in front of children when they're very tender years, the different, items of mechanical engineering or scientific items that can allow for their creativity to flourish? How important is that?
Extremely important. And actually, my wife retired now, but was a registered nurse. So she was into the sciences as well. And together, we early on, in our kids' lives decided, enough people will be giving them toys to play. we would like to give them educational things to play with, to build on their creativity, whichever direction, whether it's into the sciences or the arts, whichever direction they want to go with it. So that, and it's something that we even did with our nephews and nieces and our grandkids, is give them tools, learning tools that they can have fun with and enjoy, but it's building something kind of like latent education. They don't realize they're learning from it, but they're actually learning from it. Because I do believe these creative juices that we all leverage growing up, just by virtue of not having the luxuries that and comforts that we have today. We didn't realize we didn't have it. We made do with what we had. And I totally believe helping nurture that in children is extremely important.
Outstanding, outstanding. Before I go too far, give us your mother's name and your father's name.
Well, my mother's name is Bertil Germain, and
Bertha,
my father's
Bertha.
name Bertil Bertille, Bertil.
Oh, Bertil Germain. Yes.
Right. And my dad is Ferdy. He's deceased right now. May he rest in peace. He was my hero.
Yes.
Ferdy, F-E-R.
Was it Ferdy short for Ferdinand?
Nope. It was straight Ferdy Joseph Germain. F-E-R-D-I-E.
Yes, yes. I remember him. I remember him at the Public Works Department.
Right.
Yes, yes. And I also remember him. I'm not you said he was not a volunteer, but for some reason I remember him in the Defense Force or being around the Defense Force.
And I do recognize my birth dad. His name was Frank Julian.
Okay.
He was not part of my life, but I still give honor to him. He's the one brought me to this world, right?
Yes.
Circumstances.
Is he with us or has he moved on?
He's not. He passed several years ago.
So your mom is the only one left.
Unfortunately, my mom is still alive and kicking.
How old is she?
80. She's what, 86?
86. God bless her.
Yeah.
God bless her, and God bless the memory of your father. I remember your father very well.
Thank you.
And how many siblings? You have Lincoln. I know Lincoln. Is that the only sibling?
So on the German side, there are 4 of us. So we have Lincoln, Ale, and Johnson, and myself. And on the Julian side, I also have so I won't call all their names, but I also have 4 siblings on the Julian side as well. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Okay. 6 siblings on the Julian side.
I know Lincoln was also an engineer, wasn't he?
Yes, I went to Tuskegee University in 80. When did I go? 82, and Lincoln came the year after I did to join me at Tuskegee. So he also graduated from Tuskegee University
with a degree in engineering.
In chemical engineering.
How about you?
I did a double degree, mechanical engineering and physics. But physics was more like a fun thing I was doing. I didn't intend to do physics as a career. It was just I love doing physics.
No, most people don't have physics as a fun thing. Usually most people see physics as daunting. But I mean that speaks to your scientific acumen. Would you say you were good at science?
I love science. I love science. My whole career was in science. Yes. I love it. So, but the key thing is when it was time to graduate, I had 1 semester left to do my physics, to graduate with a double major in physics, and I was tired of school, so I graduated, and my my physics advisor, I think he was in tears when I said I'm leaving, but I didn't really intend to do anything. I just love physics, and I had a great opportunity to move forward with my mechanical engineering degree, and that's what I chose to do.
So let's get back to the Goodwill School when you and I met. So I started the Goodwill School in 1970 in Standard 3. When did you start?
Oh my goodness, Gable, I don't remember when I started Goodwill. Geez, I don't remember the dates when I studied Goodwill.
Yes, yes.
I left Goodwill and went to SMA.
Yes,
I
yes.
graduated
So you would have
SMAs.
taken the famous common entrance exam for high school, which is the sort of, for those who are in the United States, it's like a mini SAT that you have to pass to go on to matriculate and go on to high school. So I took
Correct.
mine in 72 and went to the grammar school. When did you take yours?
I think I took mine probably a year after you, 73, 74. I
Okay.
went to St. Mary's Academy, so
Yes.
SMA.
Yes. And of course, SMA was known as S smartest M men around. So smartest men around.
Smartest man around.
And DGS, the Dominica Grammar School, was known as damn good school.
That, well, not good, great.
There you go. So that was the, these were the, just for those who are listening, those were the two main high schools in the island for boys. Later, the grammar school became co-educational, but the SMA still remains a boys' school and for young men. And the Catholic Church ran the St. Mary's Academy. For a while, it was run out of New Rochelle, New York, by the Iona, from the Christian brothers from New Rochelle, Iona College in New Rochelle, New York. And then, of course, the grammar school was, started by the British government back in 1893. I think the SMA was started in the 1930s. Yep. So tell me what you remember about the Goodwill School, because it was a Canadian-built school. I remember when we got there, the concrete was still fresh, and it was very, very fancy. They had a fire alarm, and I remember guys would trip the fire alarm, and people would run, and we had the woodwork shop and home economic center, and
and I remember all those. I remember, and there were two sections to the school, right? If you remember, it was like a letter H or something like that.
That's right. That's right.
The lower section, the lower section where the younger kids were, and then we always aspired to, go to the next section, to climb the steps on the first floor and get to the next set of classes. So once you're there, you feel like you're a big boy, you're a big girl, you're grown up.
Yes.
But my fondest memories of Goodwill Junior High School was the soccer field. Going and play soccer on the field.
Because we were next to what is called the Goodwill Savannah.
Right. I enjoyed that. Recess under the right next to if you remember, right next to the Catholic tree, there's this couple of huge trees, and the women would be selling tablets and biscuits and things, not biscuits like American biscuits, but cookies and just things that they made at home.
Yes.
Turnovers, which was my favorite. With coconut fields stuff. Yes. Tambourine balls. So at recess, going out there to get that was my next favorite thing. Yes. And then of course, the woodwork shop and some of the other things that I didn't get to participate in too much. But whenever I could, I would get into those classes. Those were some of my favorite memories of Goodwill Junior High School.
Oh man, I mean, I remember Mr. Aline was a woodwork instructor. It was a very sophisticated woodwork shop. I remember he drew the parenchyma cells. I'll never forget that word, parenchyma cells, and showed us the rings and wood, told you how old the tree was, and how to cut, not against the grain, but with the grain, different things. I only did that maybe for 1 year. But one of the fun memories I have also, like you, is that of going to the vendors at the recess time under the trees next to the Catholic Church, the St. Alphonsus Catholic Church, the old church before it was destroyed in the 79 hurricane. And you'll have things like sticky tablet, you'd have things like guava cheese, and you'd have things like, tamarind balls, but there's also tamarind jam. So the tamarind jam was wet. So they give it to you on a piece of paper, piece of wax paper, and you'd have the string of the tamarind, and then you eat that stuff. I mean, none of us, and also you had frozen joys. You have a thermos.
Yeah.
And a thong, they take a penny for a frozen joy. And I remember one time, I had a frozen joy, the guy knocked it out of my hand, and it fell. And somebody said, "Man, Christian, brush that. Ice doesn't take germs." He says, ice don't take germs, But we're here, so that means, I guess we survived.
We survived. We survived. Yeah, the other two things I remember in that area, just outside of the school itself, was remember I don't know if you remember the ice factory that was across the
Of
street.
course, for those who don't
And
remember this, there was an ice factory in Dominica next to the Goodwill School because most people in those days did not have refrigerators. So you'd have huge blocks of ice, like 3 to 4 feet long and maybe 2 feet wide. And it had these huge calipers. And people would buy that, they'd wrap it in crockers bags, and then they'd bring it home with ice pick. They'd take an ice pick and break it in smaller chunks and put that in thermoses to save, or in an ice box to save for the week.
And when it's really, really hot, go in there to get some ice. The ice, because they would shave the ice sometimes while they were cutting it. So getting some of that shaving, oh man, that when you're hot and you got some ice you could suck on, that was good.
Lincoln and Kennedy was part of that crew. I remember, Kennedy, you remember, there was a boxing plant for citrus close to the school.
Yeah,
and the trucks would line up all the way from Fonkley all the way to Goodwill School, and we would go over there on break to get grapefruits and oranges.
Right. That is, remember I said there were two things I really enjoyed from a memory standpoint outside of school. That's the second one. The first one was the ice factory. The second one was the dumb fruit factory, where they would make with grapefruit, make juices and whatever they did with it. But going there to get grapefruit and grapefruit juice was, yeah, I remember that.
Kennedy, I remember we would eat so much citrus that our teeth would get sensitive. We'd say
We get glazy. Yeah, we get glazy. Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
That's right. So you get into the common entrance exam, you pass, and you go to the St. Mary's Academy. Tell me about the St. Mary's Academy, what it meant for you and your education.
I would say SMA, St. Mary's Academy, SMA, really was when I started becoming into myself. That's because the foundation that SMA built in me was what carried me through college. And I still remember, I talk about physics. Physics was by far my favorite subject in school. I learned that in SMA. And it's because SMA was run, it's a Catholic school. It was run by the Christian Brothers. And one Christian brother, his name is Brother French. Brother French would come and literally made physics come alive to us just from different things that he would demonstrate. And it was just
and Brother French was a white American.
He was a white American. I think I don't remember if he was American or Canadian, but okay. Most likely American. But he, stayed with the other Christian brothers, and he was he was one of our instructors. I think he taught physics. I'm not sure if he taught math. I don't feel if he taught math, and it was just physics. But math and physics, I just love because of these demonstrations, and they would just make it fun for the class. And that was a significant that had a significant impact on me becoming a mechanical engineer. And my love for physics and science overall was because of what Brother French instilled in me. My geography teacher, Heather Elwin, still remember her name, would love to connect with her if I could figure out how. But geography, my piloting and the things that drove me into the whole aviation field was from geography. Heather Elwin taught geography, and that was so impactful. I still remember, I talk about clouds today, and whenever I talk about clouds, I remember she teaching us
cumulonimbus,
cumulus, stratus, cumulonimbus, and all these different clouds, cumulonimbus. I mean, all those clouds. It's fascinating that I still remember those things from what Miss Elwin taught us. Yes. My French class, my English, I remember one time I was writing something in my French class, and I believe my French teacher's name was Marcella. I can't remember her name, short woman. But I'm doing this test, right? and it's like PA in French, legs in English. And I wrote legs. And she walked by and she just started singing, I know human beings have two legs, but I don't think they put two G's when they write legs, right?
Oh.
I just singing, and I looked over at my paper and I had legs spelled Leggs. And which would be totally wrong. She'll give it to me wrong, even if it was the English. I was supposed to get the French word. So I corrected it, and I always remember just that one little magic moment where she really gave me grace to correct my paper, so I don't get 100. So I don't get anything less than 100% on it.
Amazing,
so,
amazing.
SMA was fun.
Indeed, our teachers of those days. I mean, I remember people in number school like the geography teacher, Miss Harris, Francis Harris. Before that, Francis Burton. They were very good teachers, very dedicated. They were not looking at the clock. You know, they taught with passion. You know, and I believe that's why so many of the students of our generation, like yourself, obviously, Lincoln and others, Scotland, Linton, Scotland, many others, did very well because we had extraordinary teachers. At the SMA, it was interesting because the teaching staff was a mix of the Christian brothers who married white Americans or Canadians. They were Catholic brothers, which is you're not a priest, but you're sort of celibate, I believe. You're like a nun. You're like the male version of a nun. I understand the brother to be a male version of the nun, and they taught alongside local teachers of African descent from America. Is that right?
Yes, yes. The Kelvin Felix was the principal when I studied SMA.
Yeah, may his soul rest in peace. He just passed away last month or something.
Yes, which was really sad. Sad thing. As you know, I'm now in St. Lucia.
Yes.
And it was a big thing in St. Lucia.
He was a cardinal of St. Lucia, wasn't
he? Yes, yes. Yeah. As they recognized him. And then my uncle, Egbert Germain, brother Germain, became the principal of SMA.
He was a Christian brother. I mean, he was not from Iona College, but he was a Dominican-born brother in the Catholic Church.
Right, who moved to the U.S. and to join the brothers in there and came back to be the principal of SMA. So
stick a pin in there because this was a very revolutionary time. This was a time of Black consciousness, Pan-Africanism, and I know that Father Felix was the first local principal, and I believe Brother Germain was the second, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, yes.
Before that, they'd been brothers from Iona College in New Rochelle, New York.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, indeed. And so tell us about Brother Germain's time. I'm sorry.
The one thing I remember, so there's several things with Brother Germain, but one thing there are two key incidents. One where I messed up in something, and I don't remember what it was, but I ran home. It's my uncle. It's something that deserved me getting caned. And back in those days, we caned students.
So in Dominica in those days, Kennedy, there was corporal punishment. They'd cane you with the tamarind whip.
Yeah, well, he had a piece of a leather strap. That was his caning tool. And I remember leaving school and running home, basically running to Dad, right? And got home, and Dad heard the story, and Dad gave me my caning at home.
Oh my goodness!
And then he calls his brother, who comes home and give me another caning. So I got two for like that will teach you to run home. But separate from that, chemistry was something I love science, which includes chemistry, right? And I remember a group of friends and I got together. We had, a can of Baygon and some chemicals that we helped ourselves with from the lab that we shouldn't have. Went behind the school. There's a little alley at the back of SMA, and literally just for one person to walk through. And a wall, and across the wall was the government yard, the government building, the governor's building.
That's right. That's where the administrator representing the Queen of England, lived in the
Exactly.
governor's house.
And we took some stuff, went, and we just learned how to build a bomb. So we wanted to see if we could repeat the same thing. And we were successful, and we realized we were successful after the bang went off. And not only did the bang went off, we heard this group of boots running towards us. The Dominica Defense Force was practicing in the governor's yard at that same time. That was after school hours, right? That's over 2, 3 o'clock after school. And they kept running, and oh, we got scared, and we hightailed it out of there. And eventually, Brother Germain found out. I got the cane. Me and the other group of friends got pulled into the thing. But the joy of having created the bomb was a whole lot better than the cane that we got. I mean, it's like, that's fine, cane us, that's okay. We created a bomb. And we got the defense force running.
There's a bit of history there. You would have gotten programmers to SMA rather at a time of the Dread War, where the defense force was going out into the hills. That's how I knew your dad, where you had Rastafarians, people who wore dreadlocks in the hills. And the government had passed 50 years ago this year, the Prohibited and Unlawful Societies Act, aka the Dread Act. And where the SMA was, behind it was the governor's house, where Sir Louis Coles Latig was the governor. And next to that was the Defense Force headquarters. So in the midst of the Dread War, and if you remember, the reason that Cardinal Felix, then Father Felix, came and later Brother Germain was, in 1971, the SMA students had walked out because a student had been kicked over a hairstyle called the Afro, because people were in their hair like Michael Jackson, you know, the Afro. And there was a walkout, and that the principal was Brother Estrada, who was an Hispanic Christian brother. And the students after the walkout wanted the brothers to go, and then they brought in the locals like Father Felix then, and then your uncle Egbert Germain. So it was a very sort of tumultuous time in Dominica. So for a school like the SMA to hear a bomb going off,
it was
upset. The guys are planning something, you know.
It was a bomb built with an aerosol can that right next to where the defense force members were practicing. That was not good. In SMA, a Christian brother school, nope, everything was wrong about it.
Yes, indeed. Yes,
and
indeed.
They made sure we knew that and never did it again.
So in those days, Kennedy, at the end of the 5 years, you took what was called the General Certificate of Examination, GCE, with the Cambridge University Syndicate, and that was your graduation exam. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Tell us
yeah.
about the GCE.
O levels, took O levels. I remember you could take O levels twice. I mean, you could take it before your graduation year, and I took it, and I think I took like 3 or 4 classes or something or another. And I passed what I took, but then
do you remember the subject?
No, I don't remember. I don't remember which ones I took first or which ones I took second. But I started hearing some of my friends. I had like 3 or 4 subjects, and I started hearing some of my friends had 4 or 5 subjects. I said, that's not okay. I actually went back and got approval to take additional O-level classes, O-level exams. And the following year, in my senior year, I took 3 more. I already had 4. I took 3 more to get 7. And I passed those as well. So it was not as difficult as it seemed, because I think the hype to the O levels.
Well, I mean, it was difficult. I mean, you know, to us it was very difficult. You had to study a lot, cram a lot.
Well, yeah, you had to study a lot, but it for me, what I remember, and we had in my group, I had study groups. I remember like one name is like Brian Brisbane. Myself,
Brian is an auto engineer in Florida. I remember Brian. He went to school with us at 6th form later on. But his
there
brother
you
Jerry
go.
went to school with us at Goodwill School.
So yeah, he, a couple others. I just remember Newton. There's another guy named Newton that we would just get together after school to study. And while our friends, were playing, we were studying. So when I came to the exams, it's like, it almost felt like I was having a test in school, regular test. So it wasn't as big a deal for me. And probably that's why I passed. They say when you're nervous about something, you tend to forget. And it was just not a test. But I was glad that I took the 7, and I think that's where the competitive side of me started coming out. It was like my friends had more than me, and I got to go back and get more.
Yes.
And
Indeed.
once I graduated from that, then I went to Call.
Yes.
By then, I started, my desire to go to college and trying to figure out how to get to the US, to Canada,
And
or
so,
the
those who may
UK.
be listening, Call was, so before 1974, the high schools such as SMA, DGS, Convent High School, West High School, they had their own sixth forms, but then the government amalgamated all the sixth form classes into a college. And Call was the acronym for sixth form college. And it was, we used in those days, I was there from 77 to 79, we used the extramural department of Elmsall by the gardens as our center, but we'd travel around. Is that the same experience for you? I think
that's it, right? I was there during David, so 78, 79.
Yes.
78, 79. Yes. And after David, then 1980, we left Dominica and moved to the US. So I actually did not finish my A levels. So I didn't finish my so sixth form college was 2 years.
Yes.
And in my last year, so I did a year and a half. I left, I think we left in December before exams, which were like May or June the following year. Yes. So I did a year and a half of it. And jumping ahead, when I came to the US, I end up testing my way out of classes because I already done, I already
that's amazing.
The classes that
I
they
had
were
a
doing
similar experience. I tested out of English. I never took an English class in the United States. I tested out of English. They would audit you, and if you did well, then you didn't have to take the class.
Yeah, I tested out of English. I tested out of French. Tested out of physics. I tested out of algebra. And there's another one. There are 5 classes I tested out of because I'd already done them in between SMA and sixth form college. I had already done the subjects. There were some that I couldn't test out of at Tuskegee, but then I had to redo the classes. And you can imagine I had 4 point something GPA, and everybody thought it was because I was so smart. I said no, because I did the class before.
So this is a good time because now you're on your way to Tuskegee. This is a good time, Kennedy, to tell your listening audience, how would you rate, because you've traveled the world, you've been at the zenith of technology in corporate America. How would you rate Dominica's education system of our time?
At our time, out of a 10, Dominica education, caveat in that, right? Dominica education system was more like a 12. You were, the instructors treated each child like it's their child. They were very concerned. They helped you. They drilled a lot of discipline into you. It was like your parents. They wouldn't take excuses. You cannot come with an excuse. Your dog ate your homework, right? That's tongue in cheek here. But the teachers really drove discipline into the kids. And we, at one point, I remember my wife, who's also from Dominica, she's from Portsmouth. She would say, man, I wish we had said our kids were going to school in Dominica.
Stop. I was having this conversation with Kennedy on Sunday, or maybe even yesterday evening at dinner. I was saying that there are Dominicans in the Washington, D.C. area who've actually, some of them sent their children back home because, the children back home are going to MIT and Yale and Harvard and so on. Mm-hmm. And our children born here are not. I'm just saying, not all of them, but many of them are going to this plus Ivy League schools.
Mhm.
And those of us who have had children born and bred in the United States have not had the similar experience. So it tells me that that tradition of excellence in education continues.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's, you know, if I have to use one of my nephews, who came here to go to college, when I went to finish part of his high school here and going to college, come to apply to college, and the instructors are telling him he wants, you know, well, they want to send him to state colleges. I told him, what kind of nonsense is that? No, you're better than that. Your education is much stronger. You need to apply to some solid colleges. One of the colleges is Howard University, and his instructor, kind of discouraged him. I said, no, he's just your instructor. He's not your advisor. You need to apply for it. He got into Howard, and the instructor was just flawed. It's like, whoa, surprise, surprise. Our kids in the islands get such solid discipline, education, that when they apply that, you can really see the results, right? So when I said caveat to with my response to the education system, the piece that I think that is lacking, and part of it talks about the development that needs to be done, is when you graduate from high school, you're cream in the country. When you go to college, you're the cream of the crop, and it's like you get to a point where that's it. You graduate, you didn't do very well, or you don't have the resources, what have you. You got to find a day job, a labor job, or something in the country. In the US, and some of the other more developed countries, the opportunities are so wide for anyone and everyone to take advantage of. And so from an education standpoint, we restrict, it's almost like you're going through a throat, and the higher you go, the fewer you don't have. It's not that you're not being weeded out because of your knowledge. You're weeded out because of lack of resources, lack of support, and all those other things that is so abundant in some of the other in the more developed countries. So that's the one thing that I lament for our education system, is it weeds out folks too early versus, and I think now people are trying to change that and say, even if you have a trade, it's still a valuable skill to have. But there's a difference between you falling into a trade because you don't have other opportunities versus I'm doing a trade because that's where my passion is, that's what I want to do. So that's a piece of education, that's a piece of education system I wish, and I pray that we continue to strengthen so that more people will have more opportunities beyond just junior high school or high school to actually go to get a degree education.
I am going to do this. You're very correct. I endorse everything you've said. I'm going to share this with you because this is an essay that I did recently. Can you see it? It says here, let me see here.
Yes, I'm seeing your screen.
Building a chemical industry in Dominica by harnessing knowledge and natural resources. See that?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do.
So the
By
premise of
Gabriel
that
Christian.
essay, and that's where you come in, is that so last May, Dr. Clayton Shillingford died. He was one of the most eminent botanists in the world. He had his PhD from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, and was a senior scientist at DuPont Labs, went all over the world working in the area of agriculture, science, and botany, and so on. So this is in a way a tribute to him because he built the first modern labs at the grammar school in 1960-61, right? And what I realize is, as a small island, we may be small in way of size and material resources, but we have a very good human resource dimension outside the country and some of it inside the country. And so if we continue along the line that we had started with the Dominica Academy, and we have an Academy of Arts and Sciences, we do have one. It's a link to Rebuild Dominica. With brains like yours and others, we could create the infrastructure for employment that would be able to utilize those persons you talked about. Because as you say, for instance, common entrance, about 500 or so students would take the exam, but only about a third could be allowed to pass. Why was that, Kennedy?
You tell me.
Well, they only had 4 high schools when we went to high school. The Dominica Grammar School and St. Mary's Academy for boys, Wesley High
yeah.
School and Convent High School for girls. Now, there are many more high
Yeah.
schools. I think there are 16 or 17 high schools on the island. And I think now you have a system called Universal Secondary. I'll share that article with you directly. But the whole point is, you said it best. You said because of the scarcity of resources, then, if for instance, 400 of the 500 had passed, where were you gonna put them?
And that's what I do remember when you pass high enough and you get in, it's like a major celebration.
Oh, yes.
It was a major achievement versus every student passes and they get a choice to go to whichever school they want to go.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the area that needs some work, and I believe as people like us in the diaspora coming back to give back, you started seeing some of that potential being leveraged. So they're starting to change some of the thought process, figure out how do we do this, how do we increase opportunities, how to appreciate the skills and talents of the lower skilled jobs versus how we used to see it before, and how do we help folks make the right choices where their passion is. If your passion is being a chef, go be a chef versus, well, I can't get to school, I can't do anything else, I know I can cook, so I'll go cook. Right. So, and I'm seeing that perception being changed as folks from diaspora started coming back and giving back to the countries.
Outstanding. So well said. So now you went to the Virgin Islands, and from the Virgin Islands, you went to Tuskegee. How did that happen? Can you tell us?
We left after Hurricane David. My dad.
And for those who may not know, Hurricane David was a very devastating hurricane in 1979, August 29th, 1979. Tore up the island.
Dad saw this as a prime opportunity for us to make the move, because for one thing, both my brother Lincoln and I were very interested in going to college, and it became like, okay, and we all were. I mean, my family always pushed all our kids to reach as high a level of education as you possibly can, and that's one of the unspoken rules in the Caribbean, right? It's you gotta go as high as you can from an education standpoint. So it was a great opportunity to make the move to the U.S., which is where one of our uncles was located. So he went through the thing, filed for us, and we made the move. That was actually when I switched my name from Julian to Germain. It was part of this process. So he was in St. Croix, so we actually moved to St. Croix. And
let the record reflect, a lot of Dominicans went to St. Croix to work in the petroleum industry. Hess had a big plant
there. Right. And this is when and I'll try not to get emotional going through this, but my dad, Freddie Germain, gave up a life in Dominica where this guy, life was his oyster. He could do anything he wanted. He could get anything he wanted. He lived the life. He was well known, had strong reputation, well liked. No matter what corner of Dominica we went to, if I said I was a Germain, everybody respected me because of my dad, because of who he was and the life he had and the success that he entailed. He gave all that up to go overseas just so me and my siblings could have a better education. And it's not because he had a better job or he had the potential to make more money or any of that, because he sacrificed a lot. So that took us to St. Croix. From St. Croix, we went to St. Thomas, spent a year trying to make ends meet to get us to go to school where we could better ourselves. From St. Thomas, that's when I first went off No, I actually meeting with St. Thomas is running to CK Shillingford, and CK had a private aviation business, and I actually connected with his son Ian, and we would actually go flying sometimes. So my passion for flying really grew once I got to St. Thomas. Anyway, from St. Thomas left and went to Tuskegee, applied to Tuskegee. I applied to two schools, Tuskegee University and Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, RPI, in New York. Well, Tuskegee had the Tuskegee Airmen. And I always wanted to be a pilot. Dad wanted me to be an engineer. I didn't want to be an engineer. I wanted to be a pilot. Dad said, okay, great, you want to be a pilot. You're going to be an engineer. So I said, all right. Well, I chose Tuskegee.
And Lincoln, your brother Lincoln, had a similar sort of competence in science as well.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Lincoln was one of those who I would get upset with him because I would be studying hard to get my A. Lincoln would be goofing off playing and still get an A. So I'd be bad with him. He had this natural talent for just inhaling information. But I went to Tuskegee with the devious mind of going to do aviation with the Tuskegee Airmen. I did not know about historically Black colleges. I did not know about the Tuskegee Airmen. I just know they had what looked like a flight school. So that's where I went versus Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. Yes. And my justification was RPI was in New York and it's too cold for me. So I went to Tuskegee. But
Tuskegee is in Alabama in the South.
In truth, Tuskegee being in Alabama, it's warmer, but I went to go to flight school. So I got to Tuskegee and I said my first semester, I was just going to relax and settle in, which was really, that transition was more difficult than I expected. And I said my second semester, then I would get into the flight school. Well, you know the story. We did have an aviation program, but it wasn't the Tuskegee Airmen that I expected. It wasn't what I expected. So I got stuck in mechanical engineering, which I loved, but I really wanted to fly. And someone directed me to the museum, Tuskegee Airmen Museum on campus, which is where I ran into this guy that called him Chief Anderson. And that's where I met Chief Anderson.
This is amazing. This is an amazing story because I'm going to try to draw up here a photograph that I got from you with that legendary aviator in American history, Chief Anderson. If you just can bear with me for a moment. Let's see here. Let's see if I can share this picture of you. Tell me about this picture right here, Brother Kennedy. Who's that in this photo? Who's let me see if I can make it a little.
Yeah. So that's yours truly in there with one of my classmates.
You're in the uniform of the Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps.
ROTC.
No, ROTC, yes, I'm sorry. ROTC.
Yeah, I actually joined the Air Force ROTC while I was on campus. Same team, aviation, flying, and all of that, right? That's where my passion was. And so that picture, we are actually in Biloxi, Mississippi. Look, I remember that. Went to visit the base there with our group, and the young lady was just one of my friends who were also in the ROTC with me.
Okay, there's another picture that let me see if I can. So let me see if I can close this and see if I can get. There's another picture you sent with this gentleman. Let me see if I can get this gentleman's. Let's see here. If you can, Chief Anderson. He was the pioneer aviator of the Tuskegee Airmen, and he's actually on a postage stamp. If I can get that postage stamp right here, uh, Chief Anderson.
Oh, I need to get that postage stamp. Oh, wow.
See him right here?
Yeah, I need to I need to get that. I need to get that. I didn't know that.
Amazing.
So I will tell you, while I was at on campus, my second semester, I ran into Chief Anderson at the museum, and he said I mean, just this quiet older gentleman, very graceful, just like, oh, so you're interested in the airman, and we were just chatting, and he said, I'll tell you what, why don't you join me at Morton Field on Saturday, and we could go go up in the air if you want to.
And you
I
didn't
was
know
like,
who he
did I?
was.
I did not know who he was. I said, do I want to? So I joined him at, Morton Airfield is an airfield in Tuskegee, and which is actually where these guys flew out of.
Yes.
And he had a Cessna. I don't remember, it was a 172, 150, which Cessna it was, but he had a Cessna there, and I joined him, and he took me up flying with him. And not long after that, one of my other classmates, Russell, I'll never forget Russell. Russell, so the other picture I sent you is with Russell and Russell's roommate.
Yes.
Russell was actually taking flying lessons. I couldn't pay for flying lessons. Chef Anderson would take me up and help me. It was all free of charge, but I think Russell paid him for regular lessons. And this one Saturday, Russell brought his roommate, and I took the picture of Russell, his roommate, and Chief, just so I could remember the moment of it. But
Let me see if I think I got that picture from you. Let me see if I can find it. This is Chief Anderson, and then here is the photograph of this is the photograph you
yep,
took with Chief
that's
Anderson.
it. Yeah, that's it. So Russell is the guy in the middle. He was my classmate. He was also in the ROTC with me, Air Force ROTC, and the one on the far right was his roommate, and that's the chief on the left.
here, so this is the deal. Here is Kennedy Germain, a member of the Tuskegee University uh, Reserve Officer Training Corps Air Force, and he flew. That is Kennedy Germain of Dominica, my old classmate from elementary school, flew with the famous Chief Anderson of the Tuskegeean. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Can you tell me a little bit about the kind of person he was, his character, his affect, his demeanor, his disposition?
He was very. So first, I will say I did not know. I didn't appreciate the significance of the moment I was with him, right? Or the time I spent with him. It was significant for me because this, older gentleman took me under his wings and basically became my friend. But I never saw him as this hero in our history because I did not understand the history. I really did not understand the history of Tuskegee when I got there. I got there roundabout, for different reasons, but it wasn't because it was a historically Black college and I want to go there. It wasn't until almost towards my graduation, I realized how significant Chief Anderson was. But he was very humble. He never bragged about himself or his history, and I think that's part of the reason why I never made the connection. He was just this kind, very methodical. When it's funny, he would be on campus, he would be one way, but when we got to the plane, I mean, it's like a totally different person. You couldn't be talking to him while he was running around checking the flight. He would do his pre-flight inspections around the plane and get it ready, and he was like in a zone. And when we got up, he was like a kid. He would just have fun, show me things, try this, do this. Have you seen this? Can this happen? So here am I taking pictures and doing everything, and he was just teaching me little things here and there with no fanfare to it at all. And we would come back. He was a big guy. You could see in the picture, he was a big guy.
Yes.
come down, land, and say bye and see you on campus whenever, and he'll go his way, I'd go my way.
So he was
Uh,
still an aviation instructor when you were there.
yeah, yes, yes. I
And he
don't
would
know.
have
I
been
don't
in his
know.
70s by that time.
No, 82. I got to Tuskegee in 1982, so I met him in spring of 83, which is January, February time in 1983, and I was there until 86. I graduated in 86. Um, by my senior year, I saw less of him because I was so taken up with my projects, and I co-op during the summers with General Motors. So I didn't spend as much time with him. But yeah, he was still on campus when I left.
He was born in 1907, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, if in 83 he would have been up there,
He was of age. Yeah, he wasn't moving. He wasn't he didn't move fast. I mean, he
He would have been in his
just
70s, 75
yeah,
thereabouts.
methodical, just doing his stuff and no. But then Tuskegee, if you understand the culture, Tuskegee is a very small rural town. Nothing moves fast, especially back then. Nothing moved fast in Tuskegee. Even dogs sleeping were lazy, right? And and the people did things, they took their time. So Chief Anderson taking his time to do things wasn't, I mean, he was of age, so you could tell he was an older gentleman. But I
Yes.
didn't see that. I just saw this guy who befriended me because I asked about Tuskegee Airmen. I
Amazing.
just
Well,
became
I just
friends.
want to congratulate you for that time you spent with him, a living legend, and for going to Tuskegee. And Eugenia Charles, the Prime Minister, Dame Mary Eugenia Charles, the two
Mm-hmm.
brothers went to Tuskegee in 1919 and 1922. And then they
Wow.
went to Morehouse, and then they went to Edinburgh, where they both became medical doctors. So
Mm.
we had Dominicans going to Tuskegee in the earlier part of the last century. The two earliest students, are the older brothers the two older brothers, Rennie and Lawrence,
Mm.
both became physicians of Dame Mary Eugenia Charles, who was Prime Minister of Dominica from 1980 July to 1995. Yeah, so Dominica has an interesting history. Now we have two scientists now coming in the 1980s.
Interesting, yeah. And Tuskegee was really so when we were in the Virgin Islands, we actually took courses at the College of the Virgin Islands, CVI. And my advisor in St. Thomas was the one who suggested, hey, why don't you apply to go to school at Tuskegee? I didn't know anything about Tuskegee, and he gave me a handbook. And when I went through the handbook, I saw this whole thing about aviation, Tuskegee Airmen, and that's how I got interested in Tuskegee.
Amazing. So
And
the
I will
Tuskegee
tell,
Airmen really was the main influence for you.
yeah, that was the only entrance for me, was the Airmen. I would tell you that was one of the best decisions I made, because Tuskegee prepared me to be an executive in corporate America,
Yes.
to be a scientist in corporate America, and to be a Black man in corporate America. Tuskegee just prepared me. So it was like leaving SMA, where your teachers cared about you, going to a university where your teachers cared about you.
Yes.
And they drill these unwritten rules in you that you need to learn and be aware of to be successful in the
So you're saying it
in
was
the
not
US.
just the academic work, but also the value engineering at Tuskegee
Oh
that
goodness.
helped for your success,
Yeah,
made for your
no,
success.
Tuskegee gave you your education, a solid education, but Tuskegee also gave you solid life skills to be successful.
Yes.
And just like SMA, the instructors, they drill it into you. Tuskegee is like a family, and what I love the fact that the university is still that way. If you go there, you'll still get that love. You still get, we refer to Tuskegee as Mother Tuskegee,
Yes.
because that's, I still contribute to Tuskegee because the impact is so profound on everyone who graduates from Tuskegee, right?
So there's a
So
Tuskegee University Foundation that you contribute to.
yes, we have strong Tuskegee alumni organizations across the U.S. We have chapters in Cincinnati, where I spent most of my career. We have one for engineering, which I'm active in, and so on. So yeah, it's still it's still very active, and I am active in it as much as I can, at least financially.
Well, God bless you for that service that you give to reach back to help others up. And this is a good time to pivot to how to demonstrate effective leadership. 24 real life examples of grace in action. So you graduated from Tuskegee and you're employed by
Procter and Gamble. The other thing I used to do was race cars back home. I mean, we grew up, your guy drive fast, right? Or actually had groups that would race against each other. So that's something I always wanted to do was race cars. I co-op while I was at Tuskegee, co-op with General Motors. So I always wanted to work with GM because of the car business. But long story short, Procter and Gamble won my heart when I was interviewing as a senior for my next career. So 1986, I graduated and walked out of Tuskegee right into Procter and Gamble in Cincinnati, Ohio. And through my career, I stayed with P&G for 32 years, in different businesses, traveled the world, with the finest people you could run into. But the life skills Tuskegee taught me were put to use a lot through my corporate life as a Black man in corporate America. How to demonstrate effective leadership is really me sharing how God's grace helped me to be successful throughout my career. And I do that through
that. The book is really about, in your words, how God's grace helped you to succeed in corporate America. Tell us what you mean by that.
Probably the best thing is to share what's in the introduction. So in the introduction, I shared this one experience where, executive representing my company, working with another in a joint venture with this other company. We had some event, overseas in Europe that I was supposed to be at, but they didn't tell me about it. Lots of dynamics, a lot of politics, and all of everything going on. I found out about this event. It's a year-end event, accidentally by my counterpart who's in the other company. I wasn't supposed to find out about it. Well, they didn't want me to know about it because they would have invited me. I ended up going to the thing. When I got there, turned out someone who was supposed to lead a session at that event. It's a week-long event where folks come from all around the world to come to this conference. It's not a conference, really, like year-end meetings, right? Business meetings. But we had all kinds of different events scheduled for it. Someone was supposed to come to present and somehow didn't, or couldn't get a visa, whatever, fell through. So one of my colleagues recommended, hey, can we ask Kennedy to do it? I'm like, well, no, I mean, I can do it, but you're asking me to do something tomorrow that you all have had 3 months to prepare for. They said, yeah, but we know you can do it. Okay, I said, yes, I can do it. So I signed up, and I didn't know what I was walking into, but so I took that night, prepared this presentation based on the topic that they gave me. And mind you, we're talking about we had a business meeting all day, had a business dinner. I'm jet lagged because I got in a day before, from the US, and I had to prepare for this thing that started next morning. Well, they moved my session to right after lunch. Kiss of death for any presentation, right? Because everybody goes to sleep after lunch.
Yes.
But lo and behold, that session, I had 1 hour, that got rated the highest in all the sessions of the whole conference. People were excited, they were awake, it was fully engaging. At the final business dinner, I got an award. Now, mind you, I wasn't even supposed to be there, right?
Yes, yes.
So I'm on a flight on Delta Airlines headed back to Cincinnati, and I'm thinking, like, what just happened? I wasn't supposed to be there, heard of, found out accidentally, got there, got recognized, got placed in a way. My name now spread because that session that I led, most of the folks didn't know who I was. All of a sudden now my name is I'm on the map. My company is on the map. People want me to do stuff there. So I said, this has to be the grace of God. Only God could make that happen. And I say, come to think about it, this other thing that happened, that was God too. So, Gable, I pulled out a book and I started. They gave me it's not a diary, it's a notebook. Everyone got a notebook as a gift, right? Living. So I pulled out that notebook. I said, I better put it to use. And I started writing instances where God's grace helped me to be successful. And not just successful in terms of I accomplished something significant of value that drove the business forward. And my strategy on a European trip, when I'm flying back to the US, I stay awake as much as possible so that I can sleep well and not be affected by jet lag once I got back to the US. So I was awake for this 6-hour, 7-hour flight writing. And that was how this book started.
Outstanding, outstanding. What a fascinating story that you were able to grasp the opportunity. You didn't welch, you didn't go back and say, well, I can't do it. You were imbued with that faith, and that faith that was able to carry you through to really succeed in a way unimaginable. So, I'm going to say to you that when I read the book, I got through very clearly that you were a man of faith, that you did not walk a material walk, that indeed you had dedicated your life. And maybe you're not a churchy person going out there proselytizing, but you had internalized faith. And that faith found its resonance in your daily work. And in that particular instance, when you thought you couldn't do it, God said, yes, you can.
Absolutely. And that's the for me, the key approach I use in the book. It's not preaching to folks. It's not telling you what you should go do. It is really how our spiritual beliefs get integrated into our work life. And it's not, it's not anything that should be taking extra time or making you look weird or act weird or behave weird. So this is really 24 examples of real life situations where I leverage the Spirit of God to get things done in a way that is normal and natural and is not in your face, right?
Indeed.
That's what
Tell
this is
me
about.
how you think, because, we're at a very important juncture in human history, in U.S. history. There's a very pivotal election that's taking place, and I don't want to go off on a tangent on that. But let's talk about faith and how you think, with all the challenges of global warming, of good governance, of integrity, leadership, of mentorship, being able to be exemplary to people coming up, young people who listen to this program. How important has your faith been in your success?
My faith is the foundation of my success.
And you say this as a Christian man of the Christian persuasion.
Well, true, but even taking a step back, I wrote an ebook. I have a website with subscribers, and I try to give them a gift every year. And I wrote an ebook that I shared with my subscribers last Christmas, and it is literally how to turn the other cheek, and 11 other Christ-like behaviors that you could demonstrate at work. Basically, that's in a nutshell. It is how do you turning the other cheek doesn't mean when somebody slaps you, you turn your cheek and it's like, okay, slap me on the other side. No, yes. That's not what the Bible is asking us to do. It is really trusting God and believing God He's got it. So instead of me retaliating against you, I need to let God retaliate against you. Let God do His do with you, and me keep my peace and move on. Versus me belittling myself, going low with you, and reacting the way you do.
We could be in that. When you look at some of the conflicts in the Middle East, in Ukraine, in Ethiopia, and other places where Haiti, for instance, next to us, where people are in this cycle, locked in this death spiral of violence and counter-violence and hitting and retaliating. Are you saying they should take a page from that book?
They should take a page from that book, because there's a famous saying that you kill more bees with honey, right? Or you catch more bees or more flies with honey than retaliating. The Bible says, "Vengeance is not mine; it's God's." Right?
Yeah, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord.
If we truly embody and represent the basic everyday life principles that we learn from God, life is just going to be different for us. But we don't do that. We stick ourselves in the middle of it, and we're not perfect. So we retaliate, we react, we're emotional, we let our emotions take the best of us. One of the things I said in this book, I was practicing emotional intelligence before emotional intelligence was a thing.
That's right.
And it's all about, how do you control yourself? How do you control your emotions? How are you so self-confident that I don't need validation from you? I don't need you make you think any more of me than I am, because I don't need you to think I'm great. I know I'm great. But if I want you to think I'm great, I'm going to work to make you feel I'm great. How do you compete with a peer and not see them as the enemy? If you're driving the business forward together, you should be helping each other. If you have an abundance mentality, you get so much more done than missing you as the enemy, withholding information from you, not sharing stuff with you.
Take a pin in here. If you have an abundance mentality, you get so much more done. Can you repeat that again so that those who will be hearing this and explain what that means?
If you have an abundance mentality, you get so much more done, because in your mind, there is enough for everyone. If I believe there's enough for you and I will help you be successful while you helping me be successful. Guess what? Both of us being successful can contribute so much more to the company, to our business, than if I think there isn't enough and I practice the opposite, which is scarcity mentality. I reserve information from you. I don't get the benefit of your creativity. I don't get the benefit of your knowledge, because I don't know it all, right? So if I treat you and approach you from the point of the abundance mentality concept, I open up both of us up to so much more that we could contribute to the business, right?
That's outstanding. That's outstanding, and that tells me, so much about who Kennedy Germain is. Kennedy, what's the A in the middle there as your middle initial?
Aloysius.
Aloysius. Aloysius.
That's it.
Did your father, Mr. Ferdy Germain, go to the SME as well?
No, he did not.
Because, the first name is interesting. Of course, the last name, Aloysius, is, I believe, isn't it somewhere in Shakespeare or something out of antiquity? It has some meaning.
I think it's a centerpiece.
I'm sorry?
It's a saint, Saint Aloysius.
Saint Aloysius, there you go.
Yeah, right. So
I knew it had something to do with
that was from my great-grandmother. My great-grandmother actually picked my middle name.
Yes.
From Saint Aloysius.
Kennedy, there are people who say that in the name there's much power. I'm not sure how true that is, but in the case of Kennedy Aloysius Germain, I guess that's true. You've certainly, because corporate America sometimes can be very venal, very cutthroat. People don't have a win-win approach. They don't have this full approach for the abundance mentality. They operate with the scarcity mentality. I remember I went to, very tough law school, Georgetown University. And during the exam times, certain books, people would hide the books because they figured that if you, Kennedy, got the book and you're reading the same book that I was reading, then that might give you an edge. So if I read the book and I hide it, then, you know, I will have an edge going into the exam. And it was a good school, but it was very, you know, sometimes, you know, the sharp elbows, you know, sharp elbows. And I think that has led to a lot of corporate evils. And I think the corporations that have social responsibility ethic, where there's a dedication to mentorship and social responsibility. Now we hear a lot about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And there's some people afoot who try to make that bad thing, not understanding that all it is saying is we want that society is reflected within the company, that the company ought not to be a sort of select group of people. Because when we put out our product to be sold in the wider community, we don't say we only want white people to buy that product or black people to buy that product. We want all people to buy that product. And so companies that are transcendental in their thinking see the value of being inclusive and representing within the corporate structure persons from various sectors of the community in a way that's inclusive, that represents and reflects the society at large. Is that something that you adhere to, this issue of diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Absolutely. No, I was blessed to develop a career in one of the most amazing companies in the world, Procter & Gamble. And that's...
And just for those persons who may not be as astute in way of corporate America or the global corporate structure in way of major companies, what does Procter & Gamble do? What is its core competence?
So Procter we had a debate all the time. P&G, Procter & Gamble, P&G is a marketing company. We market products. So, you know, Tide, Cheer, Pampers, Bounty, paper towel, Always. These are Pantene. All these are products. Crest, toothpaste, all products of P&G.
So the average person in the United States with a Caribbean has some P&G product in their home.
Absolutely. I think at one point we used to say, if you go to any home in the US, you'll find at least one P&G product. That's because the company is very diversified. It's a premium brand company, but we also have lower tier products that we sell to folks as well.
I think I used Crest toothpaste this morning.
I worked in Crest when I retired. I retired from the healthcare business in P&G, which includes Crest.
And that's for those who don't know, that's Crest toothpaste.
Right. So, but what I love about P&G is the values that the company drove, the purpose, the values, the mission of the company. And one of the things is people are the most important asset within the company. People, not the shareholders, not the profit, because one of my favorite sayings is from one of our ex-CEOs who said, you know, you take away all my business, everything, you leave my people, and I will rebuild it in 10 years. Because he saw the value of people. And part of the value of people is the underlying fundamental expectation that everyone is treated equal. Everyone is treated fairly. So Procter & Gamble is like every other company. We have a normal distribution of individuals. Normal distribution meaning you have those who are in the center, who are average, and you have extremists, those who are over the board and those who need some help getting where they need to be, right? But the expectation is when you're at work, there's a behavior you need to demonstrate. Regardless of what you do outside, there is something you need to represent when you're at work. And for those of us who really internalize it, no matter where you are, you always represent P&G, because if from the time you say you're a Procter & Gamble employee, there are expectations that people have of you. So diversity and equity and inclusion is something that P&G drives. P&G is in the forefront on. P&G has challenged folks on in mainstream, especially in social media, around how we think and how we accept and appreciate the values and the diversity that we all bring. And we believe, P&G believes that diversity that we bring is is one of our competitive advantages. Right.
Amazing, amazing. You know, listen, I could go on easily for another 2 hours, but I know that you're well, I was going to say retired man, but from what I've heard, it looks like you're not going to ever retire, because even if you may not be a current P&G executive, you have now entered into another phase of your life where you're using the sort of cornucopia, the reservoir of knowledge you've learned as a corporate executive, as a engineer, now to teach leadership. And so as a Caribbean man, as someone who is a U.S. citizen, a global corporate executive, what is your message for young people? And how do you think that message for young people could help us build a better world?
So that's a great question. I mean, I have so many messages, but one that come to my mind as we speak is seize the moment. Moments come and they'll pass by, and it'll pass just like that. And if you don't seize that moment, you can miss an opportunity, because with those moments come opportunities. If you're able to take advantage, someone invite you to something, typically. So my life has revolved around mentoring and coaching and helping and supporting and sponsoring, advocating for others, etc. Right. So I always tell my mentees, never say no until you have properly evaluated what you're being offered, because you never know what you say no to could be an opportunity that you would definitely miss. Like in my case, the intro to how to demonstrate effective leadership, right? I talk about, they offer me, hey, can you cover this session for this person? I could have said no because I was upset, frustrated that I didn't get the proper invitation. I could have been riding a white horse. It's like, oh, woe is me, or nope, I don't want to do it because I don't have enough time. But I accepted, because I wanted to do it as a professional. To me, this was the right thing to do. And it wasn't about me. It was about, okay, I feel sorry for you guys. All right, I'll fill in. I'll do this. I'll get it done because I can, not because I want anything from it. But what came out of that moment and this opportunity was significant. Catapulted me to a different level within that organization. So what I would say to folks, don't be afraid to take a chance. Don't be afraid to take a risk. When the moment comes, take advantage of it. Don't say no until you've properly evaluated. Does that meet my values? Does that support my passion? Is this, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you so much, Kennedy. Aloysius Germain, someone who has, through his own life, shown an immense amount of grace. And what resonated with me was the part about your membership in the Tuskegee Airmen alumni chapter and giving back. It's so important, as you've done. I was told a story about a young Dominican heritage American citizen whose father went to the grammar school with me. His name is Emmanuel Finn. He's a dental surgeon in DC.
Yeah, Finn.
His daughter wanted to get an internship, and you took the time out of your day to nourish that young lady, that young leader. The father, I can tell you, speaks about it all the time, and sings your praises, in way of how you took, as if it was your own daughter. So that speaks to your character. And I'm honored to, at the age of, 9, 10, 11, well, I left for grammar school at 11. So we were together at the Goodwill School from 70 to 72 to spend that time with you in Lincoln. I never forgot the two of you, your names were resonant. And it may be that we were living close to each other. So maybe we would walk back home together, I'm trying to figure out, but I never forgot, I was always saying, I wonder where Lincoln is. And I wonder where, and then I got little snippets of where you were. At some point, you were in Texas or someplace like that. But then I met Lincoln at a event of the Dominica Wop Duet Independence show in Jersey. And then, things flew from there. And very soon I'll be interviewing him. So I just want to thank your parents, want to thank your teachers, want to thank you for representing us on the world stage very well. And to have been a student of Chief Anderson of the Tuskegee Airmen. I mean, that's just an amazing, amazing thing to have done. So God bless you. I look forward to hearing much more of how to demonstrate effective leadership by way of grace and living our lives graciously. God bless you, Kennedy,
Yeah.
Aloysius, Germain.
Well, let me say thank you for this opportunity. For me, this is important, right? You know, so Olympics just wrapped up. TLFon won gold for Dominica.
Yes.
I'm sitting in St. Lucia and my phone started buzzing.
Yes, yes.
With my friends in the US.
Yes.
Texting me, hey, we heard about your island. Your island just won gold. In case you need to turn on your TV, you need to. I mean, there, Dominica is on this, Dominica is on this. Oh, St. Lucia, you know, same thing. Julian Alfred won gold and silver for St. Lucia.
Yes,
and that's, for me, it's like, wow, my friends have embraced my island and understand what we've gone through and the significance of that moment, right? So you never know who you touch and how you're impacting folks. But it was just wonderful to see so many of my friends connect me back, connect this. There you go. TLFon winning gold in women's triple jump.
Yes, so Rebuild
for
Dominica has
Dominica.
on the front page, and I just saw a video this morning. Her brother is a football player at the Naval Academy, 20 minutes from where I'm speaking to you right now.
Wow!
They had a huge meeting of all the football players, and she came to speak to them because he was not in Paris. He was, I guess, getting ready for the football season. So you know, people like Thea Lafond and Kennedy Germain, Linton Scotland, and many others. Dr. Schlinkford, who just left. We have a reservoir of goodwill and good people, and I hope we can work in many different ways, best we can, to bring that all together to build a better Caribbean island community and build a better world.
Absolutely, absolutely.
God bless you, my friend. And
thank you, brother. God bless you too.
Of this, and I have your permission to share it, obviously, after you.
Absolutely,
thank you so very much.
Absolutely.
God bless
Thanks,
you.
Gable. Take care. God bless you too.
Just hold on. I'm going to go ahead and how do I do this here?